Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everybody, this is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and I'm happy to be here tonight. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and it's a live streaming internet radio show from blogtalkradio.com, and I do have a guest call-in number. You're welcome to phone in if you have something related, topic related that you would like to bring up, or if you just want to tell your story, or if you have a great resource that you think other people might really be able to benefit from, please do phone in. That number is 917-889-3736. And I do have my chat window up and chat room, and you can go in there if you register on blogtalkradio.com. You can register as a user, and you can sit in the chat room, and you can actually be part of the show, and you can send me questions and stuff. If I don't get to them right away, please give me some time. And if you want it to be private, make sure you do put private there so that I know, and I don't read it out on the air. And just make yourself comfortable there. And if you'd like to hang out, and I have lots of information typed up in there about what we're going to be looking at tonight, which I thought we would just go right to the topic of child abuse and neglect. And I had this article, I actually printed this out a while back, but I wanted to cover some other topics, and it just seemed fitting. So at the time, so I thought I'd go ahead and tonight and read this out. This is found. It's thehelpguide.org, and you can just type that right into your browser, http helpguide.org. And they have some great resources there, really good information on everything from child abuse and neglect to domestic violence, post-traumatic stress disorder, just all kinds of good information there. I would really recommend that website to anyone. I pull up all kinds of great material on there all the time, and so I just thought I'd pass that on to you. And I wanted to read some of this article here that they have on child abuse and neglect. It's just so good, and it just covers so much and so easily. It's just they just really know how to lay it out so that it makes sense, and it's not long and drawn out, but it just covers a lot of different stuff to do with child abuse and neglect. So I thought we'd just look at that tonight. And so feel free to phone in, and otherwise just go ahead and hang out in the chat room. And I'm just glad that you can be here with me. The first page of child abuse and neglect is recognizing and preventing child abuse. It says child abuse is more than bruises and broken bones. While physical abuse might be the most visible sign, other types of abuse, such as emotional abuse or child neglect, also leave deep, long-lasting scars. Some signs of child abuse are subtler than others. However, by learning common types of abuse and what you can do, you can make a huge difference in a child's life. The earlier abused children get help, the greater chance they have to heal from their abuse and not perpetuate the cycle. Learn the signs and symptoms of child abuse and help break the cycle, finding out where to get help for the children and their caregivers. So this article covers everything from understanding child abuse, effects of child abuse, types of child abuse, child sexual abuse, and also warning signs of child abuse, risk factors for child abuse, and recognizing abusive behavior. There's breaking the silence of abuse and helping an abused child, reporting child abuse, and other related links. And there's the child abuse hotline that is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. And up here in Canada, I have some numbers as well. And this is such a important topic, because every day in the news we see just so much sad stories about all these children who are being abused and sometimes killed. And it's just sad. It's horrific, really. It really bothers me to see it, and it's horrific that it's still going on. It's been going on since time began, and it's just going to keep going on until enough people stand up. And actually, whether it doesn't matter if you've been abused or if you haven't, or if you know someone or you don't. We really have to change society's ways of dealing with child abuse of all kinds, abuse towards anyone, right? So that's why I'm saying child abuse prevention and human rights abuse prevention is up to us, because it literally is up to me and it's up to you and everyone else to actually stop this craziness, right? And it's going to take a lot of work, but we all are responsible for our neighbor, and we do need to be standing up and saying no, stop abuse, right? So I wanted to just read some of this. It's so important that we do talk about it, and so important that the public really hear about it. It shouldn't be swept under the carpet or just put, oh well, who wants to hear about that? It doesn't concern me. Well, it does, because in the long run, it costs the country and North America I don't have the statistics here right in front of me, but it's an overwhelming amount of money is spent dealing with this tragic occurrence of child abuse. And the thing is that these are children, and it should bother you, right? I mean, it should bother you enough to where you would say, yes, I would like to get involved, doing something in my community, or doing something, donating to a cause that is actually doing some good work, whatever cause that you feel is actually making the right decisions and doing the good work to stop child abuse. Just anything. It really does help. But the more you can get involved, the better off you are, and I'm just getting started. So, it's just, we do have to step up, and we do have to stand up and speak up for people who can't speak for themselves, and that's children, right? So, understanding child abuse and neglect. I read that part. Myths and facts about child abuse and neglect. Myth 1, it's only abuse if it's violent. Fact, physical abuse is just one type of child abuse. Neglect and emotional abuse can be just as damaging. And since they are more subtle, others are less likely to intervene. Yeah, because you don't necessarily see, emotional abuse. Emotional abuse doesn't show up as signs of bruises or, black eyes or, welts or cuts, right? You can't see emotional abuse unless you really know what to look for. And that's why we all need education. Education is the key. And it is going to take people to not turn away. Don't turn away from the videos that are out there, and don't turn away from the stuff that you're seeing about child abuse, because it needs to be in the public eye. It needs to be more in the public eye because it's such a problem. Take a look around at what's happening. There's just literally thousands of children every day. It's terrible. It's just not good at all. Myth number 2, only bad people abuse their children. Fact, while it's easy to say that only bad people abuse their children, it's not always so black and white. Not all abusers are intentionally harming their children. Many have been victims of abuse themselves and don't know any other way to parent. That was my mother's problem. She was abused herself and didn't know any other way but to lash out. Others may be struggling with mental health issues. That was my dad's problem. Or a substance abuse problem. My parents didn't have substance abuse problems, but this is the thing. It could be a number of related things like that could cause a parent to abuse their child, and they might not necessarily do it on purpose, right? They need help themselves, and it's just sad that the child pays the price. And the child pays the price, and if they live through it, they pay the price for their life, for what could be their whole entire lifetime, unless they reach out and get professional help, which is what I'm here to promote. I'm not a counselor, and I can't give legal advice, and I go through that on each show. I just want people to know, that it is really important to get help, and make sure that you do, and reach out. Don't suffer in silence. Don't think that you're alone in this, right? There's people out there just like me, and but with an education, and they understand how to help you. So that's the whole issue. You want to reach out and call a crisis line if you have to. Call anyone, any of the phone numbers available in the front of your phone book. Just go through there and find some that look like it's related to what you're dealing with, and get some help, because there's people out there just waiting for you to call. And this I know is true. So here, myth number 3, child abuse doesn't happen in good families. That's the myth, right? Facts, child abuse doesn't only happen in poor families or bad neighborhoods. It crosses all racial, economic, and cultural lines. Sometimes families who seem to have it all from the outside are hiding a different story behind closed doors. So yeah, money doesn't have anything to do with it. Myth number 4, most child abusers are strangers. Fact, while abuse by strangers does happen, most abusers are family members or others close to the family, because they're the ones with the access to the child, right? So it's, more likely, quite often a family member who is the abuser, and it's very sad. Abused children. This is myth number 5. Abused children always grow up to be abusers. Fact: it is true that abused children are more likely to repeat the cycle as adults, unconsciously repeating what they experienced as children. On the other hand, many adult survivors of child abuse have a strong motivation to protect their children against what they went through and become excellent parents. So, see, that's a myth. Abused children don't always grow up to be abusers. They can grow up to be fully functioning parents. And that's just what my hope is for everyone out there who suffered with child abuse. You can get help, and there is hope. And I'm here to tell you tonight that there is hope. But we do have to stop child abuse, and we do have to step up and step up to the plate. And I'm just getting started. So I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to stand up and say no. Stop child abuse. And that's what we need. We need more people standing up and saying no. And stop domestic violence. I just say stop all abuse towards all people, right? So here's effects of child abuse and neglect. All types of child abuse and neglect leave lasting scars. Some of these scars might be physical, but emotional scarring has long-lasting effects throughout life, damaging a child's sense of self, ability to have healthy relationships, and ability to function at home, at work, and at school. Some effects include a lack of trust and relationship difficulties, and core feelings of being worthless or damaged, right? So they don't trust, they have relationship difficulties if they grew up in an abusive home, and they have a core feeling of being worthless or damaged, right? And lack of trust and relationship difficulties. If you can't trust your parents, who can you trust? Abuse by a primary caregiver damages the most fundamental relationship as a child, that you will safely, reliably get your physical and emotional needs met by the person who is responsible for your care. Without this base, it is very difficult to learn to trust people or know who is trustworthy. This can lead to difficulty maintaining relationships due to fear of being controlled or abused. It can also lead to unhealthy relationships because the adult doesn't know what a good relationship is, right? If you've never seen a good relationship, then you don't know what it is. And, that's so true, right? Because children learn, they're like little sponges, and they pick up what they see. And if all they see is a family violence situation all the time, and abuse being directed toward them, that's their idea of a relationship, right? Unless they see something else. They learn. Children do what they see, and so it's a huge issue, right? Then that's why they can perpetuate that on, right? Unless they get some real proper professional counseling and therapy, which is not a bad idea. It's a great idea. Core feelings of, and we'll go through that. I found some articles actually not too long ago about how to actually choose a therapist, because I'm looking around too, and it's so important, to actually search this stuff out. And there is a lot of good information. So if anyone needs any information from me, please get a hold of me, and or get it. You start just typing in your browser, or therapists, or child abuse, anything like that, and it'll bring up all kinds of stuff, and you can look around and see what's out there. There's a lot of material out there to look through, and good stuff, Core feelings of being worthless or damaged. If you've been told over and over again as a child that you are stupid or no good, it is very difficult to overcome these core feelings. You may experience them as reality. Adults may not strive for more education or settle for a job that may not pay enough because they don't believe they can do it or are worth more. Sexual abuse survivors, with the stigma and shame surrounding the abuse, often especially struggle with a feeling of being damaged. And yeah, that's just so true. If a child is just told all the time that they're worthless and they're stupid and they're no good, well, that they're going to take that on, and they're going to say, oh, it must be true. If they keep telling me that, and then especially if they're beating it into you, right? It's going to really stick with you, right? And it sure did with me, and it took me a long time to actually get rid of those feelings, right? Because I knew they weren't right. I actually had people tell me that they weren't right. So until someone actually stepped in and told me that wasn't right, I really didn't know. Trouble regulating emotions. Abused children cannot express emotions safely. As a result, the emotions get stuffed down, coming out in unexpected ways. Adult survivors of child abuse can struggle with unexplained anxiety, depression, or anger. They may turn to alcohol or drugs to numb out the painful feelings, which is what I did. Not so much alcohol, but drugs. And I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression and a lot of anger, and it took me years to work through that. I really wish I would have got some help sooner. Types of child abuse. There's just all kinds of good information here. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'll keep on reading here, and I'll give you my guest call-in number just in case you would like to phone. You're more than welcome to. It's a U.S. number, and it's 917-889-3736. And you're more than welcome to phone in if you have something you want to add, or just tell your story, or talk about what really helped you to make it through. I really love success stories. I'm a person who loves movies with happy endings. I'm like one of these people that just only likes good stuff. Like Little House on the Prairie, right? It all has to have a good meaning to it, and it all has to have. Because I choose to surround myself with that stuff in my life so that I can stay positive and stay focused on the positive instead of the negative, right? Because you can just, positive is so good, you're moving in a positive forward direction, and that's what I'm doing with this, with my healing, is just always moving forward and keeping it positive and just looking for what's good, because it does help. And it helps me anyway to kind of get through some of the rougher moments. And, I know that it can be done. We can do it. We can walk it out. And if you're struggling and having problems and really struggling with the issue of child abuse, and you just having a hard time, remember to reach out to people. Don't wait for people to reach out to you. They might not recognize that you're going through those. They might not realize that you've been through that, right? And they wouldn't even know what to look for as far as signs. And so you need to make sure that you do reach out to people around you, and you'll find some people that you trust, right? And especially some of these groups that I belong to, Child Abuse Survivors, a safe place for survivors and supporters, and it's a NING group, and you can get on there, you can register to be a member, and they just welcome anyone who's dealing with child abuse issues and adult survivor issues, right? And there's people on there who have gone through the same things or similar enough to where they know what you're talking about. They understand what I'm saying, and because they've been there. And so it's very helpful to have someone to talk to. And for years I didn't have anyone to talk to. And when I would talk to some people, it would scare them off. As soon as I mentioned anything about it, they would kind of be a little bit leery. They didn't really want to get too close or be a friend, because the subject of child abuse is not something people are comfortable with, right? And so unless they were really super cared about me, they wouldn't want to have too much to do with me. So I stopped actually talking to too many people about it, and I really only told people that I thought I could trust, and I did lose some friends doing that. And then there were other friends that just couldn't hang in there long enough, you know what I mean? And that's sad, but it's true. And so, it helps to get into these support groups, because these people, they've been through it. They know what it's all about, and I'm telling you, it is so worth it, and I can't tell you enough. It's just a good thing to do, and it really helps you deal with whatever you're dealing with. And just make sure you reach out for some professional care if you're really struggling and having a hard time with your daily activities, and you're thinking, oh, it's just not worth it, or whatever, and these feelings of hopelessness come up. I'm here to tell you that's why I'm doing this Blog Talk Radio show. That's actually the only reason I'm doing this Blog Talk Radio show, is to tell the listener who is really struggling that they have to hang in there, and you have to listen to me, because I know what I'm talking about. You can do it. I know you can, and you just have to keep reaching out. And if you're having suicidal thoughts or tendencies or thinking about suicide, never, never, never. It's not the answer. Suicide is never the answer. You want to get some help with that. You want to call, you want to, first of all, get some information and get yourself some help, right? And suicide.org, www.suicide.org. That's Kevin Caruso, and he says, I love you. I love his website. He actually says, I love you, and I want you to live, and I want you to stay here with me. And I just love this man. I mean, anybody that tells me that on a website is really something special. So you do want to stay alive for Kevin Caruso and for me. So make sure you do make the proper phone calls. I'm not kidding around. Emotional child abuse. We'll go ahead and start there. Actually, I'm just going to start back here with types of child abuse. I want to read this. There are several types of child abuse, but the core element that ties them together is the emotional effect on the child. Children need predictability, structure, clear boundaries, and the knowledge that their parents are looking out for their safety. Abused children cannot predict how their parents will act. Their world is an unpredictable, frightening place with no rules. Whether the abuse is a slap, a harsh comment, stony silence, or not knowing if there will be dinner on the table tonight, the end result is a child that feels unsafe, uncared for, and alone. And so that's just it right there. Children need predictability, structure, and clear boundaries. They need to know that their parents are looking out for their safety. And, so if they don't have that, and all they're getting is they're being abused and they're being slapped and beaten and verbally abused and sexually abused and whatnot, the end result, the child will feel unsafe, uncared for, and alone. And that's very much how I felt. And you just need to make sure that you do reach out and get some help. And we're just going to keep talking here and keep saying stop child abuse and just see how far we can take this, because I think there's some great organizations doing some great work, and the more people that we have backing them up, the more chances are we can save a child's life. If you know someone who's being abused, whether it's domestic violence situation or child abuse issues, you know a child and you think, oh, I wonder if he or she, this little child, seems to be, maybe they're being abused. Well, if you question it, then make the phone call, because you could save that child's life. That's how important it is, right? Emotional child abuse. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Contrary to this old saying, emotional abuse can severely damage a child's mental health or social development, leaving lifelong psychological scars. Examples of emotional child abuse include constant belittling, shaming, and humiliating a child, calling names and making negative comparisons to others, telling a child he or she is no good, worthless, bad, or a mistake, frequent yelling, threatening, or bullying, ignoring or rejecting a child as punishment, giving him or her the silent treatment, limited physical contact with the child, no hugs, kisses, or other signs of affection, and exposing the child to violence or the abuse of others, whether it be the abuse of a parent, a sibling, or even a pet. And this is really quite sad, but I experienced pretty much all of that, and it's horrible. And when you experience that for a long, long time, it really does have an effect on you, and it has an effect on all the siblings in the house, right? If it's you and if you have more than one sibling, and people handle it differently. One of my brothers committed suicide, and people blamed drugs, but see, I knew the other side of it, and so I was always cranky and mad when people would say, oh, well, he was just a drug user, so that's why he killed himself. And I'd be like, yeah, no, because people just did not know. They did not know what was going on in the home, and they didn't realize the type and the amount of abuse and violence that was directed towards us. So, it's really sad, and it really needs to stop, because it's happening all over the place all the time, right? And it's not right. And if you think, if you're a parent and you're going to lash out at your child, take a moment, step away, and take a deep breath. I can't imagine. I don't have children, but I know that children can be difficult, right? And because I was a child, I know it's easy to be difficult as a child, right? They don't understand things, right? So they don't know how to behave properly. But beating them and yelling at them is not going to solve the problem. And that's just not the way to do it. And getting so angry that you abuse them is wrong. And that's where, you have to just stop yourself. If you think that you might abuse your child, stop yourself and make the appropriate phone call. There's groups out there that are waiting to help parents who are having problems, dealing with discipline and stuff like that, and dealing with the problems within the home, raising your children and stuff. I know there's support groups out there for parents. And if it's not something to be ashamed of, right? Sometimes things just become too much, and things just escalate, right? And if you're having a lot of stress in your life, or maybe you're just having some mental issues yourself, which can happen. You don't want to take that out on your child. You don't want to take it out on your wife. You don't want to take it out on your husband. You certainly don't want to take it out on any family member or anybody else. So we do need to recognize these things, that it's not it used to be such a stigma, to have something wrong. Everybody, ooh, something wrong with them. Now it's like, no, who cares what people think, right? Reach out and get the help you need. Who cares if somebody thinks, oh, they had to go see a therapist? Well, so, at least they're healthy having a good life. So, if your friends would say that, or people, acquaintances would say that, you don't need those type of acquaintances anyway because their opinions aren't very good. We all need to get help if we need it, right? And now we see there's just so much help here, especially in North America. The rest of the world is kind of lagging behind in some places. Now, I know there's other places that aren't, but some parts of the world have none of these services here like we have, right? They don't have any services. So you do want to reach out if you can, because it's very important, and I think people should. Child neglect. Child neglect, a very common type of child abuse, is a pattern of failing to provide for a child's basic needs, whether it be adequate food, clothing, hygiene, or supervision. Child neglect is not always easy to spot. Sometimes a parent might become physically or mentally unable to care for a child, such as with a serious injury, untreated depression, or anxiety. Other times, alcohol or drug abuse may seriously impair judgment and the ability to keep a child safe. And older children might not show outward signs of neglect, becoming used to presenting a competent face to the outside world and even taking on the role of the parent. But at the end of the day, neglected children are not getting the physical and emotional needs met. Yeah, it's so true, right? You see that lots. I know when I was in elementary school, I used to look around and I could spot the kids in the class who were suffering from that because I was. So we all would look at each other like, yeah, you're one of them. And we could just pick each other out of the classroom. It was bizarre. Physical child abuse. Physical abuse involves physical harm or injury to the child. It may be the result of a deliberate attempt to hurt the child, but not always. It can also result from severe discipline, such as using a belt on a child, or physical punishment that is inappropriate to the child's age or physical condition. Many physically abusive parents and caregivers insist that their actions are simply forms of discipline, ways to make children learn to behave. But there is a huge difference between using physical punishment to discipline and physical abuse. The point of disciplining children is to teach them right from wrong, not to make them live in fear, right? So this is the whole issue. My mom's favorite thing was the backhand, and anytime I would even open my mouth to say good morning, I mean, she had the backhand ready, right? And I couldn't even, it didn't matter what was coming out of my mouth, whether it was something that I shouldn't have been saying or something I should have been saying. That was just her favorite stance, right? So I was always very fearful around her, right? And that's abuse. Physical abuse versus discipline. In physical abuse, unlike physical forms of discipline, the following elements are present: unpredictability, lashing out in anger, and using fear to control behavior. And it's a huge issue. The child never knows what is going to set off the parent. There are no clear boundaries or rules. The child is constantly walking on eggshells, never sure what behavior will trigger a physical assault. And lashing out in anger. Physically abusive parents act out of anger and the desire to assert control, not the motivation to lovingly teach the child, right? You're not going to beat your child and say, oh, I just love you, but I'm going to beat you. That is not right, people. We have to put a stop to it, right? The angrier the parent, the more intense the abuse. If you see this going on around you and you see a child who is being abused, step up to the plate and do the only right thing and make the phone call. Because this child, you could save their lives, right? And it's so important that we all pay attention. I know I'm on the lookout, and I tell you, everyone should be. Using fear to control behavior. Parents who are physically abusive may believe that their children need to fear them in order to behave, so they use physical abuse to keep their child in line. However, what children are really learning is how to avoid being hit, not how to behave or grow as individuals, see? So it's a huge issue, and it sits really heavy with me. And so, we have about 1 minute left in the show. I volunteer for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I would ask that you would go on their website and check it out. They have great information there, and they're going to have a Blog Talk Radio show coming up themselves, middle of January. I think it's January 18th, but don't quote me on that. But it's the middle of January. Be sure and look for that. And they're going to have some great information. Donna Kashir hosting with another host and guest speakers and so much information. Please tune in to them. And please check their website out. Just type in Dreamcatchers for AbusedChildren.com. And I have other resources here. There's just so many. There's Safe Horizon, www.safehorizon.org. There is Silver Braid organization, that is Ann Bissell's, thesilverbraid.org. Check them out. I'm Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Michelle Rosenthal, founder of Heal My PTSD, will be here on the show talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. I hope you can tune in to that. It's going to be such an honor to have her on the show. And suicide.org, www.suicide.org, Kevin Caruso. Oh, please go on that website if you're having problems tonight and make the proper phone calls and get yourself some help. And I would really like for you to come back on my show and say, I did it. I made phone calls and I got some help. That's what this show is for. And I just hope you can join me again tomorrow morning, 5:30, one child abuse survivor to another. Have a great night.